Okay, so we're continuing to look at the operations with radicals. So we're going to look at dividing radicals, radical expressions, and how fractions might play into that as well, because they're related to each other. Okay, so in these problems we're going to start off with fractions, and we're going to say if the quotient in the radical expression, if it's a fraction, right, like these problems here, we're going to treat the numerator and the denominator like they're separate problems. We're going to square the numerator and square the denominator, try to simplify them separately, and then kind of bring it all back together at the end. So for a problem like letter A here, I can say the square root of 64 over 49, this fraction, is the same as if I were to separately do the square root of 64 and the square root of 49. Okay, so in a problem like this, I can say, well, I know the square root of 64 is just 8, and I know the square root of 49 is 7, and so I can say the square root of the fraction 64 over 49 is 8/7. Okay, we can do that and just apply all of your regular rules to each of these problems. So for the next example, I can say let's separately do the square root of 169 x cubed and the square root of 225 x squared, right? And then we're going to have to treat these like separate problems. So I'm going to have to say, let me separately do the square root of 169, and then the square root of x to the third. Remember, whenever we have an odd exponent, we're going to break off that extra third x in this case that's making it odd. So I'm going to say this is x squared times x. Okay, and then when I simplify the numerator, it's going to look like, well, I know the square root of 169 is 13. The square root of x squared is x to the first, which I can just write as x, and I can't do anything with this extra one, so I'm going to leave it right there. Okay? And then the same thing's going to happen on the bottom, and I'm going to say the square root of 225, right? And separately, I'll do the square root of x squared. And in both of these cases, I don't need to break them down. The square root of 225 is 15, okay? And the square root of x squared is x. Okay, so that's as simple as it gets. Okay, so here's the only last little thing that you have to look out for when you're dealing with fractions is if you can simplify the fraction on the outside. If you notice this expression here, if I can simplify any part of that, I have to. So 13 over 15 does not simplify, but I can actually simplify, and I can cancel out this x with the one below it. And so my final answer here is just going to be 13 square root of x over 15. Okay, so if you can simplify the fractions, you should simplify the fractions. Okay, last one. So I'm going to say the square root of 8 over 9 is separately the square root of 8 over the square root of 9. Okay? The square root of 8 I can simplify. It turns into the square root of 4 and the square root of 2. Okay? And I can say, well, the square root of 4 I know, that's just 2 square root of 2. Okay? And then on the bottom, the square root of 9 I know, that's 3. Okay? And so I'm done. And so I would say, just take a look, 2 over 3 is not a fraction that simplifies. So I'm going to say this is the simplified expression.